So as we continue on, you've now seen at least 3 ways of creating colors. You can say color and use one of the predefined names. You can use color with an RGB, and notice you can either do it with numbers that go from 0 to 255, or you can use percentages. I don't normally use percentages, but you can also use hex. And just to show you, if you look up on the screen, please, one of the things that you loaded when we set up the editor, so if I go back to here, so notice it says here background gray. Well, that's a kind of a dark gray. But if I say, for example, pound CCC, see how that's, you may or may not be able to tell, but that's, it's not, yeah, it's gray, it's not white. All right, how do I know that? Well, I'm going to change it. I'm going to go in here, and instead of CCC, I'm going to make it DDD. And now it's a little bit darker. So there's all sorts of ways that you can play with stuff in here. All right. So I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's make it EEE. Well, that's why. It's because I've got that GR there. All right. So we'll leave it that color. Okay. But I will also come in with a body, and I'll say background yellow. And what's yellow? Isn't yellow, is that blue and green? I think it is. So pound 00FFFF. Oh, I guess that isn't quite it, but you get the idea. So now when I do this, again, I'm not saying those colors perfectly match, so I can do that, and then I can come in here and in my body, as an example, I can come in and I can say color blue. So you start to see what does and doesn't go together. See what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's perfect or anything, but you get the idea. Yes?
If you ask us to create green colors, per se, just say we say that on test. We do a color for text, like for the background, as well as like the margins.
Yeah, but that margins, that would be more or less, that's what I've done here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you've now seen that. All right. And they mentioned all browsers actually support those 16 color names. Most of them support more than that. Most of them support about 256 colors. Okay. There's also other ways you can do this. Okay, anybody want to guess what HSL stands for?
HSL?
Yep. Hue is correct.
Size?
Saturation and light. So you can use that as well. All right. Now I do want to show you something that's kind of cool. And it's going to be hard to see on this, but it's still fine. That is, when I set these up, what you can do when you set up an RGB. So let's make this one an RGB. In fact, we'll make this one here an RGB. So we're going to say here RGB, oops, background RGB. And I'm going to say 00FFFF. Okay. So do I need the commas there? 00FFFF. Why is it looking funky? Well, I don't know, but I want to see if it works first of all. So, file, just save. All right, come back to here. All right, looks like I've lost that. I'm not sure why. Background, RGB. Doesn't like something that's in there. All right, so we'll go back and we'll change it. So we'll say, let's make it what it was. Pound 00FFFF. Okay, that's fine. Let's, for the color here, let's see if we can change this one. So I'm going to say RGB 0 255, 0. Okay? Well, that's green. Red, green, and blue. I said we wanted blue, so we'll make that 0 here. And we'll get rid of this. All right. Would you agree that's blue? Would everybody agree with that? So I'm going to save this and look, and you see it is. Okay? There's something you can add to this. You can make, say, RGBA. And that's how much alpha you want. You're like, what the heck does that mean? Well, notice if I put a 0 in here, what happens? It's there, you can't see it. All right, that's how much transparency you have. If you set it to 0, there's no transparency. If you set it to 1, it's totally transparent. Does that make sense? So, as an example, I'm going to set it to 0.5. All right? It's hard to tell. This is going to make more sense when we work with images, but you can make something semi-transparent by giving it a number between 0 and 1. So RGBA means that what you want to add is alpha, and that's the amount of opacity that you put in it. All right? Okay. How to code selectors. Well, we've talked about some of this already. We've talked about, for instance, I'm going to show you every one of these. Okay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go back into my CSS file and I'm going to say I want all H1 tags to have a background of brown. Does that make sense? So we come back into our document. Notice what we have. You see, they're not. That's the only H1 tag I've got in there. If I want not just H1 tags, but also H2 tags to be brown, I can say H1, comma, H2. And now notice the difference. Does that make sense? All right. What if I don't want all of them to be brown? All right. What if I only want this one right here to be brown? All right. I don't want all of them to be brown. I just want this one to be brown. All right. Then I can go up to that section 1 in my document and I can give it a name. So right here where I got section 1, this H2 tag, I'm going to give it a name. ID equals, I'm going to call this colorful. Stupid name, but just so you get the idea. All right. Then in my style, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say all my H1 tags and anything with an ID of colorful. All right. You don't like the color? Let's make them pink. All right. Now when I look at it, what changed? Well, that one changed. It looks like this one didn't. We'll have to take a look at it. But do you see how that changed to pink? All right, let's go back and look and see what looks wrong with this. H1, oh, because I put a dot. It's a pound sign. All right. Now let's see if it's pink. And it is. If you have one of something on a page that you want to treat specially, you give it an ID. So you say ID equals. If you want to be able to change anything you want to change, so I want to change, let's say that I want this to be pink and this to be pink and just this paragraph to be pink. You with me? All right. That's what I want. Then what I can do is I can come in and as an example, I can say dot colorful, meaning it's now a class. Then I come back in here and everywhere I want to use it, I say class equal colorful. So I've got that. And I've got that. And let's just leave it at those two. So the first one's done. Second one, let's see. H2 class equal colorful. P class equal colorful. Why didn't it like that? Go back and check. That's the only way to find out. Control S. Dot colorful background. Oh, it's the background. Let's make the color pink so you can see it. Color pink. Okay. So what's pink? The H2 and the paragraph text. Okay. So if this doesn't make sense, you're going to have to read it. You have to read the chapter. All right. So if you want things, we already saw that universal selector. But now I've shown you an ID, which was using the pound sign and the word ID, and a class, which is using a period and the word class. All right? All right. This next thing, this is pretty heavy. Look at this. This says right here, I want any LIs, but they have to be under main. This says I want any A tags, but they must be under an unordered list. So if I had other A tags that weren't under an unordered list, that wouldn't change. Does that make sense? This says any paragraph that's on the same level as an H2. That's an adjacent sibling. It's like you and your brother, you and your sister. All right? This is a child. So this says only paragraphs under main. Paragraphs under anything else won't work. This says only A tags under list items. This gets pretty heavy, and you can even use this tilde here. All right? Which, as it says, is the general symbol. And I'll let you read that yourselves. I'm not going to test you on that. It's pretty heavy. It really is. You can use combinations. I already showed you this. Please look. This says all H1 tags, all H2 tags, all H3 tags should be blue. Should make sense. This says, and this is a little hard, but I want you to understand this. This says all P tags and anything a UL with a class of speakers, all those LIs underneath there should be this. You can make some really weird combinations using CSS. I'd say when you first start out, keep it simple, stupid. You know, the KISS principle. Because you shouldn't make it any harder on yourself than it has to be. If you decide that, hey, man, what I really want to do is I want to be a web programmer. Cool. Great. All right. But get used to doing the basic stuff first. All right. Now I'm going to grab these. Every one of those. And I'm going to come back into here. And I'm going to use my A tags. All right. Whoops. Well, for some reason that didn't copy. Still didn't copy. Right. All right, but we've got link, visited, active, hover, and focus. So I'm going to try to show you these one at a time, which means that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to comment this out. All right. So I'm going to say link. Orange. Okay. It is supposed to change the color of hyperlink. All right. Why is it looking funky here? I don't think this is going to work, but we're going to look anyway. Did not make them orange. Because they want you to do it like this. A link. All right. And you will say a link color orange. Okay, like that. Now look. Okay, and you say it didn't change. Believe it or not, they did change, but it's the color of the background that's making it look funny. All right. So if you want to change the color of your hyperlinks, you can use the link. All right. If I go and click on a hyperlink, what color does it usually turn?
Blue.
If you don't like that, you can change that color. So when you look on here, these are called pseudoclasses. A link is one that hasn't been clicked on yet. And actually, when you have clicked on it, it turns purple. But you can change any of these or all of these. Look on the screen, please. If you decide you want to change them in this order. Put it in your CSS in this order, because some of them otherwise will override other ones. You've got your book, so you'd never be tested on something like that. So just have that with you. All right? All right. First child, last child, and only child. What the heck is that? All right. Well, notice if I say I want my first child to be bolded. Let's try this. I'm going to grab this entire thing that you see right here. All right. I'm going to go back into here. And I don't need this anymore. And I'm going to put in this. All right. If this is correct, this should take the first paragraph and it should bold it. See if it does. All right. Can you tell how that's bolded? It's pink now. If we made it black, it would look bolder. All right. But what this is saying is I want just the first paragraph under main to be bolded. All right. Let's take a look at some of the rest of the stuff that's in here. If I wanted just the last one, I change it from first child to last child. Let's see if we can get that to work. All right. So there's the last child. That's the last one in this section. That's the last one in this section. That's the only one in that section. All right. First child, last child, and only child can be very, very powerful. You can see them used quite a bit. Right? All right. So how does cascading work? If you remember earlier, I'm going to erase this and put something on the board here. But if you remember earlier, we talked about this. That is that what you can do is you can use external CSS, which means its own file, internal CSS within style tags, or inline CSS. Do those three make sense to everybody? Yes? All right. That's the most major. That's the most minor. That's in the middle. Does that make sense? But if I have all three of them, so if in the same file I have inline, internal, and external, the inline takes the most precedence. Did you hear what I said? It has to. If this took the most precedence, you'd never see these two. So the way cascading works is it says, always look for inline stuff first. All right, then look for internal,
then look for extra.
All right, and they usually show it. They have a picture of like a waterfall or something that actually looks like it's cascading, but just so you get the idea. All right. So if you want more, it's what they say right here. Okay. So what if you want to override? I want to make sure that this paragraph is always orange, as an example, no matter what. You see this tag right here? If at the end of a tag you put this, exclamation sign important, that means override anything that anybody else has set. All right? That said, don't overuse this. I see some people who write websites, well, this is important, so is this, so is this, so is this, so is this. And they put exclamation sign important around everything. No. It should be used rarely, only when necessary. All right? All right. The developer tools, I've shown you this, but now we see it in more depth of coverage on page 145. See, look what the author did. In fact, let's do this. Let's go back to here, and let's go to our, we'll run this, all right? And I'm going to hit F12 again. Okay, now we see this, and I'm going over to elements. Now you may or may not be able to tell this. All right, I'm going to make this bigger. Let's make it iPad Pro. No, not an iPad Pro. How did I do that? Okay. There. All right. So notice what the stuff is in here. Notice if I say, you know what, I want to go back to the beginning, and I want to see what's in here. Okay. Well, what I can do is I can come in here and I can take a look and see how anything is set. Can you see this? So I can come in there and look at these tools. This is what's set for the body. Okay? This is what's set for the HTML, etc. What if I say, you know what? Man, I really wish the background color for that body was different. I really wish it was, I don't know, #. There is a way to do this. And I don't remember what it is right now. But the point is, I can come in here and I can look at anything that's in here. All right. I can take my mouse and I can say, hey, I wonder, under my header here, I've got this unordered list. See that? You see how this changes? So if I go in here and I highlight the unordered list, that's everything in my list. If I want to highlight just a list element, I can highlight that. See the difference? I can put CSS on anything that's in here that I want to put in here. All right? Here's my footer. Take my mouse and put it over my footer. You don't see it until I go down to the bottom of the screen. And I guess it isn't shown on here anyway. But here's my aside. So I can go in and it shows you in here anywhere that you want to go and set something up. So I can come in here and I can see exactly how anything that's in here is set up. I can check sizes. I can check any CSS that happens to be in there. So what the developer tools can do is they provide a way for you to go in, and if you've ever heard the term debugging, so something looks funky, so to speak. All right, so something looks funky in your CSS. You can come in here and take a look. All right, that's what they show you on pages 144 and 145. All right, we're going to do a couple more things here. Next, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit F12 again. in here so we can get back, come back in here. All right, I'm going to go into my style, and I'm going to do this. Some of this stuff you've already seen, or you've seen something that looks close to it. So I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. And yeah, I'll leave the font size is fine. The body, I'll leave that. I'll center it. Forget that coloring. Okay. Yeah, that's all fine. All right. So, can somebody tell me? Judging by the name I gave that, first of all, is this a class or an ID? It's a class because it starts with a period. I named it bolded, which isn't the greatest name, but I'm saying font weight bold. Does it make sense to you that anything that gets applied to that should be bold? That makes sense? So, just to prove it, Control S to save. I'm going to go back into my index file, and I'm going to change 3 things. All right, first thing, I'm going to come into one of my list items, just my home item here, and I'm going to say class equal bolded. Just that one. Just one hyperlink. All right. Then I'm also going to go in to one random paragraph. So I'm going to go down here. That's the one I'll choose. And I'm going to say class equal bolded. Finally, I'm going to go into my footer, which is down at the bottom. And I'm going to, for that one, in that paragraph, I'm going to say class equal bolded. All right. Now let's see what happened. Well, all right. Can you tell that's bold? Can you tell that's bold? Can you tell that's bold? All right. So that is working with font weight. There are other ways that you can work with font weight. Look on the screen, please. The author mentions them here. There are different families you can use. We're going to work with font family in just a second. Remember I did that thing the other day where we did cursive? We're going to look at one of those in just a second. Now, when you set up a font family, which is what we're going to do next, the last thing you should have in there should always be serif or sans serif. One or the other. All right, what's the difference? It's when you work, it says here, fonts with plain stroke ends, fonts with tapered, flared. Play with it a little bit. All right, in other words, I'm going to come in here. You should be able to tell the difference right away from what I'm about to do here. I'm going to come in here and say, for my body tag, all right, I'm going to say here, font family sans serif. Everybody see that? All right, now look. You see, it doesn't look very different. All right. Well, what if we come in here and we say font family? Oh, that's HTML. That's why it doesn't look very different. Got to put that in the body. All right, so let's try that again. So font family sans serif. Okay. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say font family serif instead of sans serif. You don't normally do it like this. You say it doesn't look very different. It's the way the letters are actually set up. All right. When you set up a font family, we went through this before. I'm going to say it again. So I'm going to type in here Arial. And notice if I grab this one, this says use Arial font. If you can't find it, use Helvetica font. If you can't find that, use a sans serif font. Does that make sense? All right.
Or is it serif or sans
serif or sans serif.
And those are the ones you're supposed to use last?
At the end. That's typically what you will do. Now, hopefully you can tell the difference in there. I like the way that this font looks, not everybody does. All right. So, for instance, what if I came through here and I typed in this? Okay. See the big difference? All right. And I can come in here and I can put anything you saw. Cursive. There's, I believe, oops. There he is. All right. Now, one of the reasons that looks so bad is it naturally looks like it's got a, naturally looks bolded. I mean, I think that's really ugly. But for the right site, it might look really nice. All right? Yes?
So, with the site, with the certain fonts you showed us before, are those the only fonts?
No, those aren't the only ones that exist, but these are the only, it'll be one of these.
Okay, so you
when I do
can't
this.
like use Joker Man or anything like that.
I mean, if there's one called Joker Man,
Yeah, that's what it was, a word font.
nope. But there looks like there might be a Joker. See that? But it's not blue, so I'm not sure if it's going to take that or not.
It's just certain things I was looking at. Interesting.
Now, it used to be on Apple or Macintosh machines, their standard font was Helvetica. All right? So if you wanted it to look the same on any one, you'd put that in. And again, we've done this. I showed you this before. We're going to go out and do it, but not today, that you can go out to Google Fonts and you can choose your own. There's like 950 fonts to choose from. All right. Also, please remember, it's an important thing, tell me, is this going to work?
Nope.
Why?
Spaces.
That's right. You have to put this into either single quotes or double quotes. Yep. All right, because there's a space. And again, you can immediately see the change on here too. All right. Other properties for styling fonts, if you look on the screen, I showed you font weight. There's font style. Font style is normal by default. And I don't know the difference between italic and oblique. They pretty much look the same. But if you want something to be italicized, one way you can do it is, for instance, if you wanted a whole section of a document to be italicized, you could set the font style to italic. All right. The font weight, now please look at this because it's a little different. I always just say bold. If I want something bolded, you can say bold, you can say bolder, and you can put a number. It's got to be a whole number: 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, and 900. The higher the number, the more bold it looks. I don't know of anybody who uses that. Most people just use bold. All right, but again, for effect, you might want to use that. All right. Line height is another one that you might want to work with. So look on the screen because you're going to see a big difference here. Again, I'm going to come back into here, and for the body, okay, I'm just going to leave that at Times New Roman and nothing else. That's fine. And I'm going to say here, line height, 1.5 rem. All right. Yeah, didn't look like it changed it. It should have. I'll try it on the paragraphs. Why isn't that showing? There. See that? Line height. Is that pretty obvious? If it's not, look at it on the screen. Look at it right here. Now I'm going to go and comment that line out. In fact, we'll set it here. Now we'll just comment it out. So if you want your line to literally be higher, it's going to pad it with spacing. All right. Sometimes that can be very nice as far as making something look nicer. All right. How about this? Anybody got any idea what this is going to do? Any idea what that'll do? Well, look on the screen. Remove the underlines. Text decoration, none. You can actually say text decoration underline. So if you want to like underline a paragraph, don't do that. When people see underlines, what do they think? Hyperlink. You should really probably never use underline unless you've really got an overriding reason to do so. All right? Okay. This is kind of neat. I'm up to page 152. Shadows. Okay. So let's go and let's grab our H1 tags. Okay. So we're going to come in here. We're going to say for our H1 tag. All right. I'm going to just grab something that's in the book here. Color. Pound E. F9C00 text shadow 4 pixels 4 pixels. All right, let's look at our H1 tag. That's pretty damn ugly, but you start to see the effect that you get with this. All right, notice if I cut it down, so instead of 4 pixels, I make it 2 pixels, 2 pixels. See that? That's a little easier to see. But do you see the shadow effect that's in there? And it doesn't have to be the same color. You can make it another color too, if you want to. Well, there's weird stuff that you can do. I mean, you can literally play with people's psyches. All right.
Yeah,
oh yeah, there is. I mean, if you've never heard of this, if you get done with this and you say, you know, I like this stuff, I don't know if I want to do it for a living or not for a living. What a lot of companies are doing today is they're hiring people who have psychology degrees. They're hiring them as web professionals.
Really?
Yes. And they're working with this. And that stands for user experience. And what that is they oftentimes bring focus groups in and they say, what works with our site? What doesn't work with our site? But they'll let people start to use it, and these psychologists will come in and they will look at people's reactions to see what works and what doesn't work. All right, last thing I'm going to talk about for now, and then we'll take another break, is floating. So I'm going to come out here to Google Images. And as I've said before, I'll find a little picture of a puppy. All right. I'm just going to grab the first one. That's that one. All right. I don't like that one. That's all right. I like that one. It's a little more colorful. All right. So save image as. And I'm going to save the image. I'm going to put it right out. Probably shouldn't do it this way, but it should work just fine. In class, there's our CSS. I'm going to create another folder in here called images. And in there, I'm going to put in puppy.jpg. All right. So I'm going to come in here, and at the beginning of my document, I'm going to come in. All right. right, on this page right here, right underneath. So let's see, I'm in my main. There it says section 1. Before my paragraph, I'm going to put in this. Image source equal images, like something, puppy.jpg, alt equal puppy. All right, I'm wondering if I put something in here incorrectly. We're going to find out in a minute. All right, so first of all, I want to go, since I did it over here, I want to go back and make sure I saved everything. So let's look. In class, images, puppy.jpg should be there. Image, oh, it's IMG, not image. IMG, here we go. All right, source equal this. So let's look. Is that pretty obvious what just happened? Yes? Okay. Well, what it does though is, what if I wanted that text that you see right there? What if I wanted that text to come up over here? All right. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go back into my CSS file. And I'm going to say, okay, image. I could have given the image a name. I could have given it an ID or a class. I didn't. I'm going to say float left margin right. Let's make it 10. Here's the time where you might use pixels. 10 pixels. All right. Is it pretty obvious what we just did? We told it to float all the way to the left, and we told it anything else to float around it, for lack of better words. If I'd said float right, the image would have been over here. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of ways. We're going to come back to floats later, and we're going to talk about it. Let's take a break, and after we do, there's only 2, 4, 6 pages left of the chapter. I want to go over the example that they have in the book. All right, so it's 9:48. Let's come back at 10, please. All right, it'll probably take about 15 more minutes. So in fact, I'm only at 42 minutes. I'm going to pause it so we can finish up. All right. Just so you're aware of it, the last 6 pages in the chapter are this kind of running town hall example that they have throughout the book. So this is it. I'm just going to go and run it under live server so you can see what it looks like. Okay, that's it. All right. This is the same exact thing that you'll see in the book on page 157. All right. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the layout, okay, the page layout, then a little bit about the HTML, and a little bit about the CSS. All right. That'll probably take us till around 10:15 to 10:30, and then you get the last hour and a half or so to start working on your homework. We're going to look at that real quick too. All right. So take a look at what you have in here. Notice, please look on the screen. Do you notice that if I take my mouse and I put it over these, see that? That's hover. So when I hover over this, all right, we've changed the active links. We've also changed the visited links, okay? We've got an image here, and we floated text to the side of it. On the text to the side, we have what? We have a shadow. We've got text here. Look on the screen. You may or may not be able to tell. I think at least this is italicized right here, all right? Look at what else we have here. Notice we've got just this bolded. We also have right justified our footer. Does all that stuff make sense? All right. The only reason that I'm saying that to you is what I'm saying is anything that you are asked to do like that on a test, it will be expected you can do it. All right. You've got all this text, and I just sent you this folder too. So if you want to play with that, you can. You don't have to. All right. But if we take a look at what's in here, we move this over. All right. So we've got an image. Okay. Well, what else do we have? File. Open folder. Why it's doing that, I don't know. Town Hall. Styles. Says there's nothing that matches in here. Well, file. Open file. There's main. All right. So what do we have in here? Notice what we have. A font family. A font size, which means use 100%, so use the default basically. We want all of our links to be bolded. Does that make sense? We want links with the link tag on there. And again, if you need this, this is back on page 141. The link tag is a link that has not yet been visited. So one that hasn't been visited gets this color. Hover and focus. Hover, as it says here, is when you put your mouse over it. All right. Focus basically, I think, is like if you've clicked on it. And you can see what visited is. All right. Our unordered list. Please look on the screen here. Do you notice it's got a line height of 1.5? So it is spaced out a little bit. That's what it's done. All right. Not only that, notice what we have here. All right. It says here M. Font weight bold. I'm not even sure what that's doing. But this says all of our list items, all of our paragraphs are 95%. So make them 5% shorter, smaller than they would normally be. And if you say, I don't get it, well, if you don't get it, let's cut it down from 95% to 55%. Now do you see the difference? So you could do all sorts of things. All right. And again, it is recommended that if you're going to be working in here, as I already said to you, you use percentages. All right. All right. Our header image floated to the left. The H2 that goes in here, our H2 in the header, 220%. Okay, what does that mean? Make it 2.2 times its default size. That makes sense. All right. Align it in the center. Put a text shadow around there that's black. RH3, make it 1.3 times its normal size. Make it italic and make it centered. All right. Our H1 tags that are under main, make them 1.7 times the regular size. Our H2 tags under main, 1.3. Do you see this? See where it says main clear left? Everybody see that? I'm going to take that line and I'm going to comment it out. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my code, at my stuff again. All right. And you see it doesn't really look any different. What happens is if you float something, all right, if you float it to the left like this and you want the floating to stop, you've got to clear the floats. Do you notice how all this stuff is pushed way the heck over to the left? Can you see this? See that? We've told it to do that by default. So notice what happens when I uncomment this line. And then I go back into my code. All right, you see it doesn't look different. It's not as pushed over as it was. All right. So with the CSS that's in here, notice the footer. Text align right. Okay. Now, oftentimes what you see here, instead of font size 80%, you might see this. Font size small, not small. small. Why did I show you that? Because you oftentimes see that. Okay, why is it not showing me? Let's see. Small should work. All right. But if we make it real small, like 33%, you immediately see that? Have you ever gone out to a website where it says something like click here to read our legal stuff? A lot of times you'll see that real small. They don't really want you to click it. All right? Because most people, not all, but a lot of people who click it will actually read it. All right, why don't they want you to read it? There's nothing illegal in it. But a lot of times if you've ever done that and you sign up for a site, maybe I've told you this before, you're agreeing to allow your name and email to be sent, basically sold to other companies. It's not always the case, but quite often that's what happens. All right, and again, please look on the screen. If you say, well, you know what, I don't have time, I'm not going to read anything in this chapter anyway, I would strongly suggest, if you're not going to read anything else in here, I would strongly suggest that you read, let's see, where are we? On 144 and 145, how to use the developer tools. All right, and then finally, at the end of the chapter, I would look at the example that's in here, the CSS, the HTML, and play with it a little bit. That's it, just play with it. All right, now, last thing. All right, now we're up to Chapter 4 on Shape Up. We did Chapter 3 pretty much together. Chapter 4 you're doing. So let's look at it. Look on the screen, please. In this exercise, you'll create an external style sheet. All right? So you'll make your own style.css and have your own style folder, or your own CSS folder, I mean. Make sense? Look on the screen. Can you tell this has a shadow? Can you tell that? So you'll be adding that. It's blue. You'll be adding that. Notice how the hyperlinks are a different color. You'll be adding that. Notice how these are a different color. You'll be adding that. So read your specs. Create the external style sheet for the home page for main.css in a styles folder. You can do that if you want. In other words, you can come in there and you can create a folder called styles. And underneath that, you can create a file called main.css. What most people do, look on the screen, is they create a folder called CSS and they create a file called style.css. You can do it either way. The only reason you might want to do it this way is that's what I have you do for the test. So you get used to doing it that way. But if you say, no, I want to follow the directions in the book, then do that. So I'll expect it to be an external file in its own folder. We all heard that, correct? All right. Set the default font to a sans serif font. All right, Max, this is for you. We talked about sans serif before. All right, I want to show you right now the difference between these. Look on the screen. Serif, sans serif. See the difference? Now, they tell you in the book here, question?
Oh no, I was saying sans serif and serifing for the
Yeah, okay. But when you take a look in the book here, it says set it to a sans serif font. Well, what does that mean? No, what I want you to get out of this is look. Examples of sans serif fonts. All right. So examples are these. So set it to any one of those. Okay, I don't care. Try a bunch of them. I don't know what Palatino looks like. Try it and see. All right, so that's one of the things you're supposed to do. What else? Adjust the font sizes so they look as shown above. I'm going to let you play with that. You already know what they look like from the last chapter. What else do we have to do in here? Well, we've got about 6 more bullets. Format the links so they're displayed in maroon. How do I find out what the color code is for maroon? Easiest way is to come in here and type in hex code maroon. That's the easiest way, isn't it? And there it is. Okay. All right. Format the links and down on the bottom of the page so they're bold-faced in steel blue. In the header, float the image to the left and indent both headings. In addition, change the color of the first heading to steel blue, italicize it, and add a steel blue shadow. I already showed you that. Format the list to increase the space between list items. What does that mean? Look on the screen. That means you'll have to change the line height of these. Make it bigger, 1.2, 1.4. Play with it, see what you like. Reduce the font size of the footer and center it. You can use a percentage here, all right, and text align center. Link in the main style that you just created as well as either the normalized one they mentioned in the book or the reset one I showed you. Everybody hear that? They do show you the normalized one at the beginning of the chapter where you can get it. All right, so that's what you have to change for Shape Up. So let's look at the other one. Remember, the other one is the Halloween store. All right, so again, look on the screen. Font type is changed, shadow. What have we changed here? We did some inline CSS to make that letter bigger. See that? We changed the color of the links. Doesn't look like we've done all that much more than that. So let's look here. That's everything, I think. Nope. Create an external style sheet. Again, either call it main.css and make a folder called styles, or call the folder styles, or call the folder CSS and call your CSS file style.css, however you want to do it. Set the default font to be a sans serif font. Just showed you that. Adjust the font size as necessary for headings. You can use percentages, you can use rems, you can use ems. All right? In the header, float the image to the left. Change the color of the first heading to orange. Italicize it and add a black shadow. I'm giving you plenty of time. You've got an hour and a half today and all period tomorrow to work on. And then maybe later, I haven't done it. I'm going to do it. I will do this between now and tomorrow. Then maybe I'll ask tomorrow around 10. Any problems with this? And I don't want people to say, yeah, no, I couldn't do any of it. Come on. You can. But if you do need help on one or two, then we'll take a look at them. All right? So, format the links so they're in a bold-faced orange. Format the list to increase the space. So again, line height there between the list items. Reduce the font size for the footer and center it, same as the last one. Link in the main style sheet. Looking at those very quickly because that's what we just did. Any questions? All right, then you've got the rest of the period today. So like I said, about an hour and a half to work on that today, and you will have all period to work on this tomorrow. Then on Friday, we will write a simple website as a class. I'll probably write it tomorrow myself while you're working on this. All right, just so I've got notes to go by. I don't mind doing it by just making it up, but then stuff tends to go kind of bonkers when you do that. All right? All right, that's all that I've got for today then for lecture.